There we go.
Manager for the Greater Kentucky and Southern Indiana chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. It's a mouthful, but I am here to just help spread the word and the real work that our community is doing for each other, along next to each other. And my role is just to publicize that and get more people engaged and understand what this disease is, what the awareness opportunities are, education, public policy, our fundraising, all of the things that we do here at the organization.
Erin, would you please introduce yourself at this time?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having us today. My name is Erin Gillespie, and I'm the Director of Programs for the Alzheimer's Association Greater Kentucky Southern Indiana chapter. What that means is that I'm the director. Me and my team really focus on the care and support for our community. So that's education to caregivers, people living with the disease, also professionals, resources, support groups, education, awareness. So really making sure that our community has the information at their fingertips when they need it.
I would like to thank both of you ladies. So at this time, we will move into the Q&A portion of today's program. We know our members are concerned about dementia, and many have questions about warning signs. What is the importance of warning signs?
So warning signs really are very beneficial because that early detection is key right now. Not only does it improve your options for treatment, but it also gives you more time with your loved one. They can be part of that planning, what those important decision making. And then also, they want to be part of what their care looks like in the future. It also cuts down on the anxiety for the caregiver because they're not making all the decisions. You also have more time with your loved one and can make the most of it. And finally, it's important to know early detection because you can have more resources available to you to help you navigate this disease. So we talk about the warning signs because that helps you get the early detection needed.
Thank you. So what are some of these warning signs?
So, a lot of people come to us and it's like, I lose my keys all the time. Is that a warning sign? Only if you can't retrace your steps. There are several warning signs. We do the top 10. That doesn't mean you have to have all 10 to get an early diagnosis. Some of those include decrease or poor judgment. So not too long ago, I had a lady call me and her husband had called a travel agent and he booked a $20,000 trip that they couldn't afford and they probably wouldn't be able to go on. So when you're making those decisions that are out of the norm or maybe aren't in the best taste for your family, start looking at those things. When I was talking about losing your keys, when you can't retrace your steps, that's something that you should start looking at. Also, any kind of memory loss that is going to disrupt your daily life. Like if you're used to traveling to work or to the grocery store every day, and then one day you kind of get lost and you're not sure what stop sign does, turn right at, and like you're not able to get home. So those things are going to change and affect your daily life. Go see your doctor. What we want to do is rule out dementia first. So this isn't something that you should be scared of, but also it should be something that you want to find the root of the problem because it could be a vitamin deficiency. It could be other things. So making sure that you have accurate information and go to your doctor and speak with them about some of the things that you're noticing is incredibly important.
Okay. How has research advanced with the involvement of the Alzheimer's Association?
Yeah, so we've been able to do a lot of work with our local entities. So local entities being our local researchers, research institutions. And through that, we've been able to really advance and accelerate the research to the point where we're able to say, hey, if you get that early detection, or if you do know the warning signs, like Erin mentioned, we have the opportunity to work with not just you being the person who's diagnosed, but your family as well, of how you want to plan out that rest of your life. So that's the biggest part about accelerating this research is, of course, we're looking for a cure, but we're really trying to help the people right now who are going through it, who have gone through it, who might be going through it. And so with that, we've been able to fund we've been able to fund different therapies and treatments that are different from the medications that families and, really the people living with the disease have been on. Those pills that have been on the market for the last couple decades, those have just treated the symptoms. But these FDA-approved treatments actually go to attack the disease, or what scientists and researchers believe cause the disease, the amyloid plaques and tangles that impact and end up affecting your brain and causing the disease. And so they think. So we have these, a lot of great work has been done with our research and being able to talk with people and educate people on what it means to have options. One of our community partners over at CHI, St. Joseph's Health, he said now anytime we are talking with patients, we're able to take that conversation from being kind of a doom and gloom conversation to more of a, all right, well, here's the plan that we have. We have a plan of action. And that conversation just naturally turns around into a conversation of hope. And we're seeing that a lot. And while we're feeling and seeing that hope, we do know more people are being diagnosed. And so a lot of what the research has found as well is the prevalence on a county level. And in our facts and figures that were released of March of 2024, we were able to get down onto a county level and find out the prevalence based on people's based on the population, based on county. So in Indiana, because we do also cover Southern Indiana, that statewide average of people who are prevalent and predisposed based on their age, 65 and up, because we do know age is the greatest risk factor. That statewide average is at 11.7%. And then in Kentucky, it's 10.4%. Kentucky is known as one of 20 states being a neurology desert, which means for every one gerontologist or specialist, there is not enough of those doctors to help even take care of just that 10% population who are prevalent to developing this disease just based on their age. So we've been able to find out so much information through the research, not just offer hope, but offer some more insight, which has been really helpful when we're talking with families and when Erin and her team are working to educate the community as well. It's more of a whole rounded effort to be able to talk with people and say, all right, A to Z, this is what we know, and this is how we're able to help.
Well, something that I'm sure our audience, that is really important to our audience, what resources are available to the community?
Right. So we're talking about treatment. We're talking about 10 warning signs, but we talk about awareness. And so really getting the information to the general public is essential. So people have these resources at their fingertips, because unfortunately, 1 in 3 seniors do die of this disease. And so we want to make sure that people have the resources and information prior to being affected. That doesn't always work. But we do have resources for caregivers and for people living with the disease. And like I said, for professionals. For the Alzheimer's Association, one thing that I always talk about is our 1-800 helpline. It's 1-800-272-3900. The reason this is incredibly important is because it is 24/7. It is housed by master level clinicians. It is our organization. It is not contracted out to a third party. So you are contacting the Alzheimer's Association. This is also for anything. You can call this number if you just need someone to talk to. A lot of caregivers, they have a lot of stress. They don't know what to do next. There's a lot of boxes to check. You can call this number to find out if you, what does it look like getting a power of attorney? What are these new treatments and how am I eligible? You can call this number. So really, it's a one size fits all for any questions, and also just for the support of the organization to understand what you're going through and help you navigate and give you tips and strategies to do that. We also have a community resource finder. So not always are our caregivers in the same town as their loved one. We see a lot of people that maybe they're talking to their on the phone with their mother, that maybe snowbirds in Florida, and she's noticing that maybe there's some differences, something doesn't seem right, but she has no idea what is around in where her mother lives. She doesn't know a diagnostic center. She doesn't know community supports. Our community resource finder provides resources and information. It's also housed by AARP in partnership. Everything is located by zip code. Even in a large city, living in Louisville, you can be on the east end or the west end, and that's not always drivable. There's also access or barriers in travel. So really making sure that you have resources close to you is essential. And so our community resource finder helps you do that. And then here locally, we do offer education programs. Our education programs, like I was talking about earlier, is for the general public, like 10 warning signs. What should I be looking for? All the way to the impact of Alzheimer's. Like Jerica was talking about some of the facts and figure reports. What does it look like in our community? Why is this such a pressing topic, and why is it important? All the way to our empowered caregiver program. So we know our caregivers are the people that are making the decisions, later in the stages of the disease, but also they're the ones that are going to the doctors. They're the ones that needed a support group. They are also the ones that need to understand how to communicate with their loved one, as they go through the different stages of this disease. So really, we are trying to empower the caregiver to reduce that stress by giving them the knowledge that they need as they, navigate this disease in every stage. And so that's from early diagnosis to the late stages. And so we really want to make sure that they have the support they need. They understand the disease. And that's the reason we need to empower them with the education. And then, of course, our support groups, that is a staple of the organization. We know people need to be around people that get it. This disease can be very isolating for the person with the disease and for the caregiver. And so our support groups offer the opportunity. We have an early stage support group that is very unique because you can come with your loved one. So it's for the care partner and the person with the diagnosis. They come, they, talk to others that, are going through some similar situations, and then they break off into two different groups. This provides a safe space for the caregiver and the person living with the disease to really talk about what they're going through with other people that maybe are in similar situations, like I said. And then we also have support groups specifically for caregivers. When you say support group, some people are a little hesitant because they think you just have to come and talk about your problems. And, that's up to you. But I always say that our support groups are also an education program. All of our facilitators are trained by the association. Many of them are either past caregivers or work in the aging space. So it's a great place to get resources. You may be dealing with something today that person next to you dealt with a year ago, and certain things work for them. And so again, it is a staple of our organization. We have over 27 throughout the state of Kentucky and southern Indiana, all the way from Paducah to Ashland. So, and then we do offer that virtual option too for all of our resources, because we know that caregiving is at 9 to 5, and sometimes you're looking up stuff at midnight. We want to make sure you have access to anything you need 24/7. And so, and we know that can, of course, make the journey a little easier, and to know that you're not alone.
Well, I would like to thank you two ladies for all that wonderful information that you have gave us. So at this time, Shelby, do we have any Facebook questions?
We do, Tanya. I want to give you all just a brief thing online here. If you do have questions, please pop those in the chat and we'll get those answered as soon as possible. So Cynthia says, how are patients tolerating the infusion medications?
Yeah, so with these infusion medications, we always, with the infusion medications, with the disease itself, we always say when you meet one person who has Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's or another type of dementia, you meet that one person. No two people are the same. And it's the same thing when you are going through a clinical trial or you are going through the infusion therapies. So far here locally, there is one woman who she has been absolutely amazing. She originally called us, I'd say a little bit over a year ago. And we told her about the support group that was happening at our office. And she was recently diagnosed. And so one thing led to another. And when she came to the support group, she was also a little bit hesitant. But she came and then she found a path into, oh, wow, we just got an FDA approved treatment. I'm going to see if I'm a candidate for it. So she was in the early stages of the disease. So she was a candidate for it. And since she's been on it for about a year and she hasn't had any issues. Now, of course, this is just one woman, one situation. And so that's also another thing that we really want to encourage people is ask your doctor, ask them all the questions that you come up with. There's no dumb question because unless if doctors and clinicians and all of that don't know what you're thinking or what you're feeling or what's going on, then they won't know. So you have to be vocal about that and just say, hey, I have some concerns or I just want to know a little bit more and ask all the questions that come to mind because that is important, especially when we're talking about this disease that is unfortunately fatal. And these are information that doctors and clinicians can get and bring back to researchers, bring back to the people who really need to know the ins and outs about what patients are thinking and what they're feeling. And that being said, Judy, she is so great at sharing her story. And, she's like, I ask all the questions. I want to know what's going on, and she is very passionate about talking so openly about what she's been going through and just her experience with it. So, that's a really positive story that we've been able to see firsthand. And just the other week, she came into my office and we were working on some stuff and she was asking me some questions. She's like, I feel like I can live to be 90 years old or older. She's like, I have so much courage and I think I could do this. I think I can live longer. So that's the kind of hope that she feels having gone through these infusion treatments. So that's definitely, something to think about. And, from time to time, she's like, anytime we're in the same room, she's like, Jerica, can you just finish my sentence for me? Because I know you know what I'm going to say. And sometimes when I can't get that word, I just need that help. And she's like, but I feel like I've been in that same place. I haven't felt like I've seen anything else change. And she's like, so I feel very confident in what I'm going through in this path that I've chosen for myself.
Yeah, thank you. Another question online is from Rita. It says, should one be concerned when they are unable to recall things as quickly as they used to, such as family members' names, certain famous people, and things that recently happened?
Exactly. There is normal aging. And that's the reason the 10 warning signs is important in understanding what the disease is. There's normal part of aging that your brain's not going to function and not recall things like when you were in your 20s. And that's okay. It's whenever you're getting really down into like poor decision making, word finding. That's not saying that that whenever you can't remember a celebrity's name on the TV, that's a problem. But really looking at all the symptoms and really taking a step back and saying, well, there's this and this and this, and that's whenever the collaboration of these signs really make you need to go to the doctor and just talk about those concerns. But that's something I do want to make sure that everyone knows is dementia is an umbrella term. And so Alzheimer's, we talk about Alzheimer's a lot because that is 60 to 80% of all cases. And so whenever your brain, you're going to forget things, but dementia is whenever it's starting to affect your daily life. And so, again, if you don't remember a celebrity's name, that's okay. That might be early. That might be just aging. But again, the collaboration of some of those symptoms is what to look for.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if you're feeling, if I could just chime in, especially if you're feeling a little stressed or, our brain is a very powerful thing. So if you're feeling just a little bit stressed, maybe just drink some more water and go to sleep a little bit earlier. That's always, you gotta preserve your health as well. And so, and if you ever get to a point where you can't come up with your words, but you end up getting there, that's good. But if you're living with someone who just can't get to those words, or if you notice anything different, just take note of it. Your loved one, your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your loved one best. So if you notice anything, just take note of it. And like Erin said, the culmination of it all, or just a couple of them, it doesn't ever hurt to go and ask your doctor about this.
Okay, thank you. Another question online is, does the Alzheimer's Association direct caregivers of those with FTD to an organization to help them, or do you also assist them?
So we assist anyone with any type of cognition, memory loss, or anything like that. So I know we are called the Alzheimer's Association, but our legal name is Alzheimer's Association, all related dementias. So like I was talking about that umbrella term, anything that, even mild cognitive impairment, FTD, things like that, we have resources and support for.
Okay, thank you. Another question we have here is, how can caregivers or loved ones best support someone showing early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia?
So we talk about this, that's the hardest part, right? Is initiating those conversations. And sometimes there's a lot of grief and, some people are in denial. But, I just had this conversation not too long ago with a loved one, and we teach this in one of our education programs is, when you're starting to see those signs, start having those conversations. And it's not the attack mode, like, I think you're losing it, or, maybe we need, it's about saying, if you think that you are having some issues, or I'm seeing things, or if you're noticing things, would you want to know? I said that not too long ago to my family member, and they were like, of course, I would love to know. Well, that's the initial conversation. And then as you see things, write them down. Because if that person does have some, memory or cognition issues, they may not remember the challenges they had a week ago. So start writing it down. That way, when you do have that sit down conversation in a safe space, that you can, go over some of the things that you've been seeing and date it. You don't want them to be on attack. You want it to be a discussion.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Facebook is, what is FTD?
Frontal temporal dementia. We heard a lot of people asking about that after Bruce Willis, the actor, was diagnosed with frontal temporal dementia. There are 4 major types. And like Erin said, Alzheimer's is the most commonly diagnosed, with up to about like 80% of cases that are diagnosed are Alzheimer's. And then there's frontal temporal dementia, which basically impacts the part of your brain where, as researchers like to say, separates us from the animals, our emotional regulation, our logical thinking, our rationalization, our interpretation of body language, understanding language, talking, things like that. And then we also hear about Lewy bodies. And that is more of, again, when you meet one person with Alzheimer's disease, you meet one person with the disease. And so some of these different symptoms and behaviors can overlap. And that also factors into which diagnosis ends up, being placed on the person who is being diagnosed. And so there is Lewy bodies, and Lewy bodies tends to be a little bit more of aggressive sort of behavior with real hallucinatory states where it's on days on end, or, there's just a lot more agitation, and visual hallucinations is one of the biggest things. And then there is vascular dementia, which is also brought on by strokes, heart attacks, anything where there's interruption in the cardiovascular system, any interruption from the heart to the brain, like those strokes, like those heart attacks, can bring about vascular dementia. And so those are the 4 different types, from frontal temporal and Lewy bodies and vascular dementia. Those diagnostic tests end up coming out to be like 5 to 8% of people.
And there's a lot of statistics on our website too, to kind of explain that umbrella and to see, what the different types are. And so that's very important to know as you're moving forward with what diagnosis you have, because like Jerica said, some of them do have different symptoms and the way that you, act or have different behaviors.
Okay, thank you. So one thing we talk a lot about here at AARP is prevention. So can you all talk about some lifestyle changes or other preventative measures that people can take to reduce their risk of Alzheimer's in the future?
Absolutely. We are working on a state level with BOLD. Kentucky just received the BOLD grant, which is building our largest dementia infrastructure. We know as an organization as well, there's a lot of research about prevention. What are those risk factors? Why is this so prevalent in our communities today? And so we do have education about brain health. What can I do every day? Even if you do receive a diagnosis, there are some healthy things that you can do to really prolong and have some more time in that independent stage. So prevention is very important. We talk about, take your medicines as you're supposed to. Brain health and heart health are very important. Stay active, making sure that you're active, like walking, jogging, even if it's yoga, keeping your heart rate up. Also a healthy diet. A lot of doctors and research shows the Mediterranean diet. We call it the brain diet. And also doing things that are hard, making your brain work. If you're good at puzzles or you like crosswords, social engagement, stay social. A lot of times, like I talked about earlier, that this disease can be isolating, but it's still incredibly important to go to church, go to one of our social engagement programs, have your friends over for coffee, making sure that you're active and making sure, again, protect your head as well. Traumatic brain injuries can cause types of dementia. So there's lots of things that we can do every single day that can help reduce those risks of getting this disease.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question from Facebook. Vicky says, are there any in-person caregiver support groups in the southwest Indiana or southwest Louisville area?
Yes. So we have 8 in Indiana or in Louisville. And so I would be happy to share that, but you can find those on our community resource finder. So that's alz.org/CRF. And you can look up support groups by zip code. So if there's one close to you, or it'll show you the one that's closest to you. And if there's not one that is convenient for you, we do have online support groups.
Okay. Thank you. So on behalf of AARP Kentucky, I'd like to thank Aaron and Jerica from the Alzheimer's Association for joining us today and sharing some very valuable information about dementia and the warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Would either of you like to share some final thoughts before we close today?
Yeah, we are a resource. If you're going through this disease, if you're wondering about the warning signs, if you're wondering how to reduce your risk, reach out to us. We, as an organization, we want to make sure no one comes to us and says, I wish I would have known. We want to make sure that this information is out there, that's accessible, and that no one has to face this disease individually. We are your family, and we can definitely help you as you go through this journey, or even if you would like to volunteer to help us fight the good fight, we are also here for that too.
Thank you. Jerica, do you have anything?
And I also, oh, I'm sorry. I think my connection is a little wonky. I also just wanted to chime in. Final quick thought is that we will be celebrating like we do all year long, but especially in November, we like to take the time out to acknowledge our caregivers and everyone who has a hand in helping taking care of someone who has the disease. We know that we have a lot of caregivers out there, and November is your month to remember all the good work that you do and how helpful it is for people who have the disease to have a support system like the caregivers in our community. So of course, if you guys ever want to connect with us, you can find us on social media. You can give us a number as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I also like to say thank you to Tanya, our Louisville Community Team volunteer, for being here with us today. For those of you that are watching online, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you learned something new. We look forward to continuing this series into next year in early 2025, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.